First of all, that day, weather-wise, it was the most beautiful day ever. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was like 70-something degrees. It was a beautiful day, beautiful morning. I wasn't in uniform at the time where the plane first hit. I was assigned to Brooklyn for a meeting because I took care of the police cars. So I never got there. It was actually my partner's birthday that day. And I went across the street from the radio station, and he's a big scratch-off guy. So I got him a birthday card, and I bought him some scratch-offs, put him in a card. But he was working with another officer who I reached out to him last night, but he never got back to me. His name is Eric Romero. My partner's name was Mike Mazziotti. So they were working together in the radio car, and they went their way. I had to do my thing. My meeting was a little later, so I didn't have to, rush out the door. All of a sudden, we hit, we see the plane hit the first building. We like, oh geez, it must have been an accident, I thought nothing of a terrorist attack, So we all, rushed down there, and as we're trying to evacuate people, pull them out of there to get them to safety. Then the second plane hit. And we said, "Oh my God, we're in trouble. We're under attack," and that's when reality kicked in. So I was standing across the street from the post office, and I was watching these poor people jump out the window and just watching them. It was horrific. It was probably the worst day in Bedrock ever. What else? When the first building collapsed, everybody ran, was running for safety, and then when the smoke cleared, we went back in, and there's certain sounds and certain smells through your life that you'll never forget. And the sound that I'm never going to forget is the firefighters. When they're oxygen tanks, when they're wearing their oxygen tanks and they don't move for like 10, 15, 20 seconds, it chirps. When we went back in there, that's all you heard was chirping. Chirp, 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 chirp. It went from a beautiful blue sky to you couldn't see 4 feet in front of you from all the dust and destruction that caused. It was just, horrific, and it affected everybody in the world. People uptown had no clue what was going on downtown. Even months later, it was like, business as usual in Midtown, and downtown was a horror show. It was just a nightmare. You couldn't, the streets were all covered with debris and dirt, and, it was bad. It was bad.
At what point did your wife had to have been, tearing her hair out? At what point were you able to let her know you were okay? Because you were right nearby your precinct.
Right. Well, actually, I had called her and said I'm going down to the World Trade Center. A plane just hit the building. So she said, we had a friend that worked. Her name was Lisa Seppi, and she worked for Aon. And thank God she took an extra day off. She's like, "Oh my God, what about Lisa?" I was like, "Lisa's fine. She's home. She took an extra day off. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made it, because I think she lost 90% of that company. They lost all employees because that's the floor the plane actually slammed into." So I didn't get to talk to my wife until about, I guess, after that initial phone call, probably about 10 o'clock at night. You know, you just lost all concept of time. Like time just stopped. You didn't realize you were down there for like 15, 16 hours. You could, so much was going on. It was just amazing on how people pull together. And, you know, they say, you know, it was probably the best rescue ever between the fire department and the police department. You know, a lot of people made it out of that building and survived because of our rescue, you know, efforts. Uh, it just it wasn't their time, I guess, you know. But there was stuff all the way down to. I don't have to tell you, you were there, right? You were down there by you were right there by, you know, West Broadway and Lisbonard, and there was stuff all the way floating down. It was like a big mushroom cloud, just it took over all of Lower Manhattan. And those buildings did what they were built for. They took the blow, you know. The idea of these terrorists was to try to chop these buildings in half and cut them in half and have them topple over and destroy Lower Manhattan. It didn't happen. Those buildings, they took the hit, they stood. It was the jet fuel that, you know, hindsight, who would have known, right? That kept that building, you know, that brought the building down was the jet fuel, you know, because it burns so high, you know, in heat. But it was amazing on the efforts and the people and you know, it brought the country together. It didn't matter what color, what religion, it didn't matter. Everybody was an American, you know, and for like 6 months after it, people were clapping and you know, hey, you guys are the greatest. And then all of a sudden it just faded away, and now you just became, you know, oh, why are you giving me a ticket? You know what I mean? Why are you locking me up? You know, so we kind of lost the, you know, the hero part to being back to the bad guy. You know what I mean? So, you know, my dad was a battalion chief, and he said I said, Dad, if I wanted to be loved, I'd be a fireman. You know what I mean? Everybody loves the fireman. But nobody loves the cops. You know what I mean? The only ones that love the cops are the old timers and the little kids. And I don't even know if they like us anymore. I mean, the old timers like us, but you know, it was just a terrible day. You know what I mean? It's changed everybody's life. You know what I mean? Even if you weren't touched by this situation, it's changed everyone's life. Security reasons, you know, all kinds of stuff. You know, I don't know what to say. It was just, you know, I hope it never ever happens again. I mean, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I think the media is probably the worst. I mean, since I was a responder 2 times to the Trade Center. I was there in '93, and I helped, my partner and I, we helped pull the firefighter out that fell through the flooring and ended up in the garage. And it was a group effort to get this firefighter out of the debris. And between his training and our training and the ESU training, he's very lucky to survive. But after that incident, they had every expert on this, you know, explaining why it didn't collapse and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? There are certain things we don't need to know. You know what I mean? Only you know, the true people need to know. The general public doesn't need to know. You know, and it's, if we're listening, you know, the terrorists listen, and they're taking, you know, they're taking notes and like, oh, okay, oh, I didn't know that, but we'll have to check, you know, we'll have to adjust this and just that. But that's it.
Well, that day after the Twin Towers collapsed, what were you doing there? What was your job there?
Oh, we were just, looking for bodies and seeing if people, were still alive. We was on top of the rubble trying to, dig some through stuff, and listening and, just just looking for any time of life, you know. And finally, you get to the point where it's like, all right, you got no more energy. It's time to you gotta regroup. You know what I mean? And you got the next wave coming. And it was I was on the pile for a couple of times. But I was in the area throughout the whole cleanup. You know what I mean? So very you think back, it's like, what a career. What a crazy time. But,
Well, since your job was actually located in the zone, the exposure zone, how's your health?
well, I have a little sleep apnea, some girth. What else? I'm very blessed right now. You know what I mean? I was in pretty good shape. If one thing I stopped smoking after it. You know what I mean? But I think why, people think I'm out of my mind when I say this, but I think because I smoked for, a few years, that my lungs were already protected by all the tar and nicotine and whatever. And a lot of that stuff didn't get in. And as soon as it happened, I wrapped a handkerchief, around my face and my mouth. So a lot of those particles, I guess, didn't get in, or they're in there and they're just laying dormant. You know what I mean? So I go for my checkup twice a year, and I pray to I thank God every day. You know what I mean? So I've seen a lot of things in my career, and I hope most people never have to see it. You know what I mean? So otherwise, I'm in pretty decent shape. Round is a shape. You know that, right?
Have you suffered any PTSD, Jimmy?
You know what? Not really. No. I try not. As a cop, fireman, doctor, nurse, you see things throughout your whole life. It's part of your brain that it gets put in the back of your brain somewhere, and it gets locked up, and you try never let it ever seep out. You know what I mean? It's an experience. And I think a lot of suicides are because that people, it seeps out and they can't deal with it sometimes, and it gets the better of them. But me personally, like I said, God's blessed me very much. I don't even have nightmares about it. You know what I mean? I don't dream about it, nothing like that. Just the only thing is, like, when I hear, like I go by a firehouse and they're testing their equipment, or and I hear the chirp, and it just, oh my God, it's unbelievable. You know what I mean? That brings me back to that day. But other than that, not really. You know what I mean? I'm pretty well even keeled about the whole situation.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Just please take care of yourselves. Don't take anything for granted anymore. There's a lot of bad people out there that are trying to hurt us, and we have to stay vigilant. You know what I mean? Reminds me of a guy that used to sell coffee down at Stone Street and Broadway. Coffee guy. He was a Taliban guy. He knew everybody from Wall Street. They tell, the guy was there for like 5-6 years, you know what I mean? And, he ended up being not a good guy, you know what I mean? He was giving everybody information about, the ins and outs of Lower Manhattan and the stock exchange. It's amazing. So,
Was
I
he
don't know even know.
charged?
I believe he was, yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember his name, but they did lock him up. You know what I mean? I know that for a fact. But it's just, we don't know what's going on half the time. You know, everybody thinks we know everything. We find out maybe 5 minutes after you. You know, it's different.
Jimmy, the one thing we didn't talk about, what was your exact job title then?
Oh, I was a regular patrol officer.
But with the transit district?
Yeah,
All right. I thank you so much.
you're welcome.